we get started with this chapter, I just wanted to come on here and say we made a little accident with this chapter. We accidentally used Tealdi's PNG that we've been using for her OC when it's actually Kiki's narration. So please, please hold your disbelief for just a little while. This is Kiki's narrating for us, and we just kept Tealdi's PNG up there. It's an excellent chapter. It was edited really well, so I hope you guys enjoy it. Thank you so much, and enjoy Arc 5, Chapter 76. Bye!
Arc 5, Chapter 76, Fruits of the Battle for Pristella 3. The Sin Archbishop of Wrath, a bandaged monster who claimed to be the wife of the madman, Sloth. Sirius Romane Conti had her entire body tied up with the chains that had been her own weapon, and she was locked up in a room of the shelter, unable to move about.
I was bored because no one came, nor would they come close. But they went to call you, my dear. Thank you. My apologies. Thanks to everyone, it seems like we could have a happy reunion, even though it appears like there are some nuisances as well.
On having seen Subaru enter the room, Sirius's voice called out in greeting. However, the final part of her words was filled with an intense anger towards Emilia and Beatrice. As always, it seemed like Sirius was mistaking Subaru as a body possessed by Betelgeuse, or something like that. Of course, that was just what she wanted to believe. Whilst overwhelmed by the monster's powerful gaze that radiated with madness, in which she had clearly lost her marbles, Subaru shrugged his shoulders so to mask that and said,
"You're quite composed for one who's captured. I don't know if Priscilla thought to try and capture you on some whim of hers, but we definitely won't be releasing you safely."
Even if you say that, they cannot get rid of me so easily either, right? Oh, thank you. I know you care about my well-being, but my apologies. You took the trouble to worry, but that makes no sense to me, because this is correct, is it not?
With this peculiar thought, Sirius interpreted Subaru's threat as a positive. The monster kept its quiet posture on the chair, and only let its slightly cracked voice quiver.
So long as there is love to think of other and want others in everyone's hearts, no one can deny me. Even for that prideful girl, the same applies.
Your authority should not have worked with Priscilla and Liliana. It's not like there's no one capable of hurting you.
But that someone is not you. Whatever does not come from you yourself, no matter what it is, ultimately makes no sense to me. Thank you. My apologies.
He gritted his teeth at Sirius, who had relaxed her bandaged lips into a smile. It seemed like a conversation had been established, but in reality, there was no mutual understanding between them. The resolute values within Sirius did not accept even a modicum of external stimuli. The more it struck him, the more stricken Subaru got hurt.
Subaru, it's pointless in fact. It's meaningless to expect human emotion like introspection or empathy from such people, I suppose. These guys are nothing but malevolent, in fact.
Spirit in the form of a girl, do not get closer to my precious Betelgeuse.
When Beatrice pulled Subaru's sleeve as he clenched his teeth, Sirius bluntly began to take a sullen attitude. Beatrice snorted her small nose to the words of that monster and tugged Subaru's arm even closer to her.
That's too bad for you, I suppose. But Betty belongs to Subaru. I was needed here, and here I am, I suppose. Don't you call Subaru by that disgusting name, in fact. You don't even know the true meaning of holding that name.
Do not get carried away, little brat. That person's side is the place which I snuggle up to in heart and flesh. Do not dare to point your mistaken, arbitrary devotion to that person. I will set your backside on fire, burn the inside of your belly to cinders, and turn you into fertilizer for Adlagna.
Both of you, don't get worked up and start fighting. It'll make me angry too.
After the creation of a stormy atmosphere by Sirius and Beatrice, Emilia intervened, gaze sharp. He was in a situation where he was surrounded by 3 women, being pulled by his arm, but Subaru did not have the liberty to joke about it right now. Such was the strong feeling of oppression he felt in his soul by being next to Sirius. He was not sure if it was caused by the authority that monster possessed.
Emilia, Beatrice, step back. Perhaps you'll only talk with me. Although, regardless if there's someone here or not, I have doubts as to whether that'll happen.
But
Please. An unexpected chance to speak with the witch cult has come around.
If it were not for this situation, he would not have had the opportunity to sit down and talk with the witch cult. Emilia let out a sigh at Subaru's request, and both she and Beatrice exchanged glances with each other. They took a step back as to not interfere with his conversation with Sirius. Then Subaru, who had been entrusted with this situation, turned to face the bound monster once again.
As you wish. I'll speak with you. So you've been making your chains creak since a while ago. Stop moving. If you slip free from your bindings, we'll be forced to beat you down.
You two have your standpoint. I understand that. That is fine. These chains will not come loose or break so easily. Thank you.
The captive Sirius was delighted with Subaru's attitude, who was attempting to converse with her. It was not that Emilia and Beatrice's figures were out of sight, but it seemed like she had completely expelled them from her notice.
So, what should we talk about? Because of your relationship with me, there's hardly anything to say between us. We can just exchange love. Do you not believe likewise? Just kidding. My apologies?
Your purpose. Yes, your purpose. The purpose behind why all of you Sin Archbishops attacked this city at the same time. You don't need crap like the book or the artificial spirits. At least, we know quite well that all of your purposes weren't really to steal them.
It is a misunderstanding that we really did not intend to create. Though it is certainly true that I personally did not wish them here. I do not know about the others, but I was just following the Gospel's writ.
The Gospel. Oh, that again. It was the same with Petalgeese as well. Why do all of you follow that strange book? Petalgeese followed it as well.
And as a result, he lost his life. The Gospel's writ showed the path of the future that an owner must follow. Even knowing such circumstances, it was not omnipotent. That much was clear if he thought about the final moments of that lunatic. Subaru knew that the path of the future which could be seen was not absolute. Yet even so...
Why does the witch cult follow exactly what the book says? Is it because the book will help with the resurrection of the witch? Of your beloved Witcher of Envy?
Please do not misunderstand, darling.
Misunderstand?
Sirius's emotion of joy suddenly disappeared from her voice on hearing Subaru's accusatory voice, whilst the monster looked into Subaru's eyes with her glittering eyes. On her face, which was wrapped in bandages, she twisted her lips to bare her yellowed teeth, and then she spoke.
You are the only one I love. The only one. I do not care about the witch. Everything is just necessary things to get to you. The other Sin Archbishops are similar. All of them have worthless, insignificant, repulsive desires and merely cling to their authorities. For me, my only reason is love, and for my beloved dear, it is different. My apologies. It is different in every way.
The witch cult's purpose was the revival of the Witch of Envy. Subaru had believed without any doubt that it was so, considering Petalgeese Romane Conti's behavior and utterances, and in addition, the creed and antics of barbarism he had heard about the witch cult up until now. However, that principle, the very foundation for the existence of the group known as the witch cult, had been shaken here. Of course, Subaru had also met Regulus Corneus, and they had exchanged words too. As soon as he thought on whether that conceited and egotistic man, who looked down on everything besides himself, was going to idolize the witch, the sense of incongruity rapidly became stronger. Now that he mentioned it, it was obvious. The more he thought about, the more he could come to a better conclusion. But if it was like this, then what purpose did the witch cult have in existing?
Why the hell are you all in the witch's cult?
Because you are. That is my sole reason. I am here to exchange my love with you. I do not know about the others. If we become one, I think you would understand.
Becoming one, in brief, probably meant melding their heart together with each other with the power of her authority. But that was not understanding. It was forced conformity. It was not possible to call forcing a heart against its will by binding it into the same emotions a way of understanding each other, let alone becoming one.
What are the purposes of the other Sin Archbishops? What is the ultimate goal of the witch cult?
Well, who knows? My apologies. Regrettably, it's something that doesn't interest me.
In general, where does the witch cult meet? Is there a leader?
No, especially such established routine. You know it too.
While still putting on a crazed smile underneath her bandages, Sirius avoided Subaru's questions. No, she probably did not even intend to dodge it. The monster would sincerely answer in a monster-like way to her husband, Petalgeese's questions. Due to her behavior so far, there was no reason to doubt that Sirius was aberrantly devoted to Petalgeese, on top of her dependents. In other words, just like the monster had stated, she really did not know anything.
At any rate, in the end, it seems it is like that.
Huh?
Sirius grumbled that out whilst looking at the pensive Subaru from below. Subaru reacted a little slowly to the frigidness of those words. The monster took advantage of the momentary gap born from it. The small chair creaked as it tilted, and Sirius's face drew close to Subaru's visage. From up close, her bloodshot eyes stared at Subaru, who held his breath reflexively. Sirius tilted her chair, still bound up to her ankles, and balanced herself up using only her toes, which hung barely free. Her body fell forward with an injection of momentum so to lean against Subaru.
Oh.
I had thought something was strange ever since the time we reunited back at the clock tower, but I am sure of it now. The passion of that day is nowhere to be found in your eyes. My dear, are you being swallowed? You are being eaten up by a soul, by a body which was supposed to be a temporary abode, and you have ended up unable to move about. Really, you are such a useless person without me.
Sirius's long tongue suspiciously licked Subaru's cheek as she breathed out a fevered sigh. Feeling the rough tip of her tongue on his skin, every single hair on Subaru's body stood on end. A growing sense of discomfort erupted within his chest, and the back of his eyes became dyed and deep red. It was crazy to think that this phenomenon had simply been caused from her vile action. It was crazy to think, but he did not feel like he could consider anything else. And then,
Ice brand arts!
the blow of an ice hammer came swooping diagonally and hit Sirius's body, who had been clinging to Subaru, and launched it to the back wall along with her chair. The sound of an impact was raised, and Sirius, who had received this icy blow defenseless to stop it, fell down. Dust blew up across the narrow room, and bits from the ceiling came pattering down.
Oh!
Standing next to Subaru, who had ended up falling on his knees, Emilia dematerialized the ice hammer she had created. Subaru, slow to notice that it had been Emilia to let loose that blow without any forewarning, let out a long sigh. He really could not comprehend what had happened at this moment.
Subaru's such a big idiot, I suppose.
Becco?
Amidst the impact and the parched sound, Subaru blinked, noticing that his cheek has been slapped. The one who had struck his cheek was Beatrice, who had nestled up close to him. She looked at Emilia out of the corner of her eyes and said,
If Emilia hadn't interrupted that now, Betty would have done the same, in fact. You were too careless around someone like that, I suppose. In the worst case, she could have ripped your throat apart with her teeth, in fact.
Subaru became aware of his own carelessness thanks to Beatrice's words. It was no exaggeration or something he could laugh at. In reality, Sirius had licked Subaru's cheek with her tongue. Putting to one side the repulsiveness of that action, if that tongue had been a fang, and instead of his cheek, it had been his neck, Subaru would not have been able to stop it.
Don't try anything strange. I'm a little scatterbrained, so I can't hold myself back very well. The next one will surely be a really painful blow.
Emilia declared that she did not intend to go easy, whilst keeping her guard up against the collapsed Sirius. Sirius was completely bound, such that she was incapable of moving about. The excessive precautions they had ended up taking against this opponent, kept as a prisoner in this state, was proof of the monster's fiendish being. It seemed like he had forgotten about it, putting the threat of its authority at a higher standing. However, this Sin Archbishop of Wrath stood out from the rest, even in looking at its combat strength alone. At a first glance, one would think that the strongest in the witch cult would be Regulus, the Invincible, but in reality, since greed relied entirely on his authority, his threat had been low. a threat that did not depend on an authority, along with the threat of an authority. In this sense, the other Sin Archbishops were much more powerful than Regulus.
Subaru, you should have already known this, I suppose. You won't get anywhere, even if you talk to this person, in fact. She's not the type that you can have a proper conversation with. I don't know what she knows, but even if you wish to get something out of her, you aren't going to be able to have a sane conversation to find out what she knows, I suppose.
If it's impossible to converse with her,
Pose the query to her body. What I mean is torture, in fact. Though that isn't something which Subaru should do, I suppose. It's something which the kingdom does sometimes after having caught someone, in fact.
Beatrice tugged at Subaru's arm to get him to stand up as she expressed that cruel point of view. Torture. Subaru felt an indescribable feeling of uneasiness in regards to that word. Along with death and brutality, they were not words which were heard or spoken in his everyday life. Although he did not know the actual situation, he knew how such gruesome things were practiced because they were within reach of his imagination, along with the anguish of the people who were exposed to that.
I don't think it's what they deserve.
He did not think that everything had to end up with death when it came to settling a battle. He thought of wanting to finish things up without killing as much as possible had always been in his nature. That was a moral value which he had brought from his original world, and that in itself was a naivete which Subaru could not detach himself from. But even so, there had always been a conclusion that had stepped past the boundaries of those morals. He would have preferred to finish things up without killing if he could. In the end, that thought meant that he would have to kill his opponent that necessitated it. That had applied to both Sin Archbishops, Petalgase and Regulus, and the other Sin Archbishops, Sirius, Capella, and Alphard of Gluttony, would be no different when push came to shove as well. He felt hatred and a lust for revenge. But in yet a different part to that, there was an intent that had determined that those guys were people he would have to kill.
I'll be excusing myself from talking with you anymore. When we separate here, I probably won't get another opportunity to talk with you. I don't think that's a pity, nor commiserable. But hurry up and spit out what you have to say, and then you can rest in peace. That'd always be helpful.
Telling someone to die right to their face had brought him a difficulty breathing. Subaru had merely said that and made a motion to leave the room since there was nothing else left anymore. As Beatrice had mentioned, if they wished to try and get information on the witch cult from Sirius, they had no other way but to pose the questions to her body to get more out of her. That was a different task, one which Subaru could not do. When Subaru showed his intention to leave, both Emilia and Beatrice's face broke into relief. Both of them had been against entering the room from the start. It was a regrettable situation, in that they had just been put in a foul mood without reaping any results. However, thinking about it in a positive light, it had become clear to them that the way those guys thought was incomprehensible. It seemed they should be content with that. There was no telling what would have happened if he had gotten close. Subaru and the others made their way to the entrance without bothering to lift Sirius back up, who still lay toppled over thanks to Emilia's blow. It definitely was not a laudable attitude, but with that,
Wait up.
Subaru stopped in his tracks due to an unpleasant sensation that grated against his skull just when they were about to reach the entrance. Then, he looked down at Sirius, who was lying on the floor. The source of that unpleasantness came from over there, from the collapsed Sirius. The monster was lying on her side, breathing crudely from her nose whilst pressing her face against the cold floor. Her breathing was so awfully ear-piercing that it had drawn his attention to her. Just before leaving the room, he had realized that she was humming a tune.
Stop that song. What are you trying to do?
She was out of tune. Her pitch and rhythm were both in a state of chaos. This dissonance did not come to a halt there. It was nothing else but a declaration of Sirius's intent regarding Subaru's words. In other words, a refusal, a rejection.
I told you to stop! The song is grating through my head!
My apologies. But songs sure are great, are they not? They taught me that songs are wonderful. That's why I want to try and sing all of a sudden.
Liliana?
Sirius should have heard the song upon squaring off against Priscilla and Liliana. He had no idea how song had sealed her authority during their fight. In the midst of battle, the monster had not hated the song, and instead, she had learned something from it. However, the monster's understanding of the song definitely was of different strokes to the feelings which Liliana had put into hers. Hers was something more eerie and distorted.
Don't compare her song with yours. Yours is different. It's something else.
I could say the same about you. You are different. You have changed. You are definitely different from that person whom I love. Even if you are the same, you're different.
Huh?
Petal juice is inside you. Soul and soul shall melt together. Flesh and flesh shall become one. And like that, that beloved person shall surface, though it shall take some time. What I ought to do is help that, to see that person's awakening by your side.
Still collapsed on the floor, Sirius twisted her neck and looked up at Subaru. An endless swirling storm of emotion surged up in her crazed eyes. Anger, joy, sorrow, and a longing that she was unable to conceal, all continued to swirl in Sirius's eyes.
I will drag that person out from inside of you. Thank you. My apologies. Please, until that day arrives, take care of your mind and body.
Sirius certainly understood that Subaru and Petalgeese were different things. She should have understood that, but yet the monster hid under a convenient fantasy, such as overriding him. Petalgeese, who slept inside of Subaru, would someday come out to greet him, she had stated. There would be no such thing. That would be impossible. It was likely true that Petalgeese's witch factor, which he had absorbed, was inside him. However, there was no way that Petalgeese's soul would be safeguarded. Where did this monster find these similarities between Petalgeese and him to have repeated such bullshit? Or was it that Subaru and that lunatic had some similar parts when seen from the outside?
One last thing. I'm going to give you some advice so that you do not end up doing something unnecessary.
Advice? You to me?
Yes, so that I do not lose my beloved darling. Be careful around gluttony. Bizarre eating, gourmet, and satiation will eventually try to snatch you away. If that happens before he wakes up, no one will be able to remember my darling.
From the place he had least expected, Wrath had mentioned the name gluttony and given him information on them. Although the content itself was nothing unusual, it was just information which he already knew, but no.
Wait, gourmet, and who else?
Gourmet, bizarre eating, and satiation. Being eaten and taken in without anyone noticing what was lost is an act of barbarity against love, which we must melt together, blend together, and become as one. If you get the chance, please kill gluttony, since they are an obstacle.
Revealing that on Sin Archbishops in the same position as her, and moreover, she had indifferently wished for their death. It was great that, in this case, there was a fatal discrepancy in the relations between the top brass and the witch cult. The issue was what Sirius had said about gluttony. No, about the gluttonies.
I totally thought that the gluttony which Otto came across was the gluttony who had been in the control tower, since they've been prowling about like lust, but...
What if that was not the case, and it was just one of the gluttonies from the two additional ones? What if all three gluttonies had been lurking in the city, and not just that one? And what if the gluttony in charge of the other control tower had continued to protect its post?
Shit, I need to make sure.
Subaru clasped his hand in dismay at his own stupidity, kicked the floor, and headed towards the entrance. Now was not the time to continue talking with Sirius. Subaru had to make sure, with his own eyes, the safety of everyone who had participated in the battle to defend the city. He had to make sure that no one had disappeared because their names had been devoured by gluttony.
Emilia! Beatrice! Go straight back to the shout we were at before! I've got to make sure of something!
Subaru? I don't know what's blown into you, but calm down.
When this is over, I'll calm down all you want. I'll calm down. So please, let me do what it takes for me to calm down. It's something urgent.
Subaru hurriedly replied that to Emilia, who had touched his shoulder. From the start, Beatrice had not intended to interject in Subaru's behavior, looking shocked. Subaru had already forgotten about Sirius and had hurriedly jumped out of the room.
Wait up! Subaru! I'll go too!
And so, Emilia hurried after him, and both of their sets of footsteps moved away at a quick pace. As she listened to them, Beatrice turned her head back at the door, pointing her gaze at Sirius, who was still facing flat to the floor, and then pointing her palm at the monster.
To tell you the truth, it's not like I don't think turning you into smithereens here would be proper, I suppose.
So, why do not do so? Spirit whore. It would be most welcome for me as long as that person's awakening is hastened.
Beatrice let out a sigh at the provocative Sirius's manner of speech, and then lowered her palm. The little girl held the hem of her dress with the hand she had lowered, and her eyes became filled with strong emotion.
If you make Subaru sad, Betty will definitely kill you, in fact.
Of course. My beloved Beetlejuice's resurrection should only be welcomed by feelings of joy.
It was uncertain how much she understood, or if she was done here or not. But regardless of that, the doddering conversation ended, and Beatrice left the room, closing the door behind her. Just before she did, Sirius's distorted hum slipped into Beatrice's eardrums. A harassment and severity of sound that grated against one's sense of hearing with its distorted rhythm, like trampling the concept of music underneath it. A completely new kind of music that planted unpleasant feelings in others. It was the song of resentment. The door was closed, and the song of resentment was cut off. But, no matter where she was, the distorted rhythm remained in her ears. Beatrice chased after Subaru and Emilia at an adagio pace, whilst tasting that unpleasant sensation. After leaving Sirius's prison, Subaru rushed over to Al, who had stayed in the corridor. Al, on standby with Blue Dragon's sword held in his one hand, was taken by surprise by Subaru's fierce attitude as he stormed his way over.
Hey bro, I heard a super loud noise. You didn't kill her, right? Punching and kicking also counts as prisoner abuse, so they ain't things you could really praise.
I didn't kill her. Afterwards, I'll give you a proper explanation about the prisoner abuse. More importantly, I need to confirm something. Ow. No one died where you were, right?
Whoa, if you're asking about the whole city, I don't know. But at least me, the cat-eared sis, and the miss with the Kawaraki accent are all fine. I thought you already knew.
I know, but... Oh, shit! I won't go anywhere like this!
It was natural that it had come to an inconclusive answer. Following with Subaru's concern, on the chance someone had ended up as one of Gluttony's victims, that person would have disappeared from others' memories, just like Rem. Asking, is there a person you don't remember? In such a situation was completely senseless. The easiest way would be to tell Al and Emilia everyone's names, one by one. That was scary. That was terrifying. Although this was not the time to cower, it would be terrifying to hear it from someone's mouth. It would be much more reassuring to go back to the shelter and check the safety of everyone with its own eyes.
I'll go back to the shelter. Please keep an eye on it until Reinhard comes back, for whatever reason.
Alright then, but... well, no, I won't ask about the details about what went on inside. It gives me the chills.
Shaking his hand, Al avoided pursuing the real meaning behind Subaru's behavior. Rather than being considerate, it was about avoiding trouble. And so Subaru went back through the passageway and left the shelter. Looking at Priscilla from the corner of his eyes, who seemed bored as ever,
That's the second one.
he counted.
Commoners sure are of small caliber, hence why your hearts get perturbed by such trivial matter. Such a hassle. If you are going hither and thither, at least focus your attention like you are sightseeing as much as you can.
That you haven't changed doesn't relieve me one bit. See you later.
Without time to stop, Subaru quickly passed by in front of Priscilla. It was an attitude, or rather, a disrespect, which might have fouled Priscilla's mood, yet she stayed silent on that matter, whilst fanning her skin.
So, Subaru, what do you want to do? What is it you have to make sure of?
While returning to the shelter full of injured people, Emilia called out to Subaru, the latter restlessly looking around. To her call, Subaru hesitated for a moment on whether to ask for her help. Recalling Rem's case, Emilia did not possess any resistance in regards to Gluttony's meals. Subaru had yet to forget the shock upon learning about the loss of Rem's name from her mouth. He had regained himself to the possibility of that wound reopening once more, and held the courage to explain the situation to Emilia, because this was an unconscious blade, one which Emilia was unable to take into account. Till now, Subaru had confirmed the names of several of his companions who had fought in the defensive struggle. Beatrice and Anastasia first, then Garfield and Mimi were added to that, then Wilhelm and Otto, Liliana, and Kiritaka as well. Felt's being was confirmed too from Otto's words. According to the girls' story, Reinhard and Ferris should also be fine, and Priscilla and Al, whom he had been with just a little while ago. In other words, so far, it had yet to be possible to check the safety of
Subaru, it seems we have met up safely.
Reinhard?
A refreshing voice called out to Subaru, whose thoughts were spinning around rapidly from his side. When he turned around, there was a red-haired young man raising his arm in greeting, Reinhard. Only a scant hours had passed since meeting up safely with him, who, after Regulus's defeat, should have gone around to provide reinforcements to the other camps. Nevertheless, now that he was looking around for his acquaintances, he felt honest relief in being able to see his face.
It is a relief that both Emilia-sama and Beatrice-sama also reunited safely.
Thank you, Reinhard. You should have been running around the city, right? Thank goodness you're all right. Yeah, truly.
No, it is no big deal. Besides, even without me, everyone fulfilled their role steadfastly. My modest power was only a little bit useful.
Reinhard replied politely back to Emilia, and then looked at Subaru. Reinhard narrowed his sky-blue eyes, and as if seeing through to the depths of Subaru's heart, he said,
So, Subaru, did something happen? Right now, you look like you're in a hurry.
Right now, I just want to check if something happened. Reinhard, have you met with Felt? Felt and the others? Well, Larkins and the others, that is.
The trio of Tonchinkan. Now that it had come to this, they also belonged to the framework of comrades. He had heard from Otto that Felt was fine. He had also heard that her servants were safe, but that did not mean he had mentioned the names of the 3 servants as to confirm them. He was not able to feel relieved. To the desperation of Subaru's question, Reinhard gently placed his hand on his chin and said,
Yeah, they are fine. Felt-sama, those 3, Larkins, Gaston, and Camberley, are all safe and sound. Larkins and Gaston have injuries, but those are not serious enough to cause worry. In regards to Felt-sama having acted independently, I think she will have to reflect on this later. Do you agree?
There seems to be a pretty big chance that our Internal Affairs Minister was saved thanks to Felt, so do take that into account. I'll beseech for a lenient punishment. Anyways, there wasn't anything else in addition?
Anything else?
Anything else? No. Sorry, it wouldn't really be a specific question. So, after we separated, did anything happen? Any problems, or anything that worried you?
Even if he thought about it again, he still had no specific question to ask. Subaru felt miserable. However, Reinhard did not laugh in reply. Instead, he quietly mulled it over and shook his head.
No, my apologies, but nothing is coming to mind. Nothing particularly problematic happened after I left you and Emilia-sama. Well, that I can think of anyway.
I see. My bad. It's not that. Well, yeah. There's a lot I'd like to talk to you about. So when you can, can't you go fetch Felt? I'd like to consult with the people involved about what happened now, and what will come after. May I leave that to you?
Sure, since it's a request from you. Right now, I just asked Felt-sama to stay quietly in the standby area once again, so it will probably sound sarcastic to her, though.
Yikes, that's bad. Afterwards, I'll apologize as well. So for now, I'll rely on you.
Giving a wry smile at Subaru's words, Reinhard looked around his surroundings a little, and then quickly left the place. Upon jumping out to the outside of the shelter, his figure was barely visible, leaping over buildings in one bound. He would soon meet up back with Felt, it seemed. The problem was...
Subaru, Ferris is here. You want to hear his story, right?
Yeah. I also wanted to talk to Ferris.
Called by Emilia, he looked in the direction she was pointing at. There, he was able to find the figure of Ferris, restlessly letting his gaze wander to and fro in a corner of the shelter. The cat-eared healing arts user was staggering about, and his complexion looked awful. Most likely, it was the result of his healing voyage that he had been taken on by Reinhard. Because of the full use of his healing magic, it seemed like he had sustained a considerable burden. Even so, he was walking around looking for his next patient without rest. Or rather, it seemed like that was not the case. Ferris, who was looking around his surroundings, noticed Subaru and Emilia, and raised his voice. He hastily tottered over to them, and caught a hold of Subaru's scruff, as if he were going to collapse. Propping his light body up, Subaru called out to him with a,
Hey?
and then,
The Sin Archbishop! They were caught, right? I'm gonna make them spill out everything they know. I'm going to ask them how to treat Kusama. So, tell me where they are!
Subaru was paralyzed by Ferris's gaze, glaring with eyes wide open into Subaru's own at point blank. Ferris's fury was like that of a raging fire. He was merely concerned for the well-being of his beloved master, and when it came to saving her, he was prepared to show no mercy to those who know how to make that possible.
Ferris, calm down. I understand your feelings, but even if you hurry it up, you won't achieve any results. For now, let's talk.
Don't say convenient things. Do you understand my feelings? There's no way you understand them, it seems. Whilst you're speaking so calmly, Kusama's suffering so much. You know that. If you truly understood, you wouldn't be able to remain calm. Stop being so irresponsible!
Having been jabbed in the chest and a finger pointed at him, Subaru kept his mouth shut. Having been assaulted by irrational comments, Subaru was unable to even reply back. Crush's condition had not changed. She was still infested with Capella's lust blood, but more than anything, Subaru felt relieved by Ferris's comments just now, realizing that Crush had not been forgotten. That black corrosion had also set itself into place in Subaru's right leg, and the palm that he had touched Crush with. However, there was no way that would bring relief to Ferris's heart.
I must save Crush-sama. I can and will do everything that is necessary for that. If I have to torture the Sin Archbishop, I will do that too. I know how to cure people. That's why even if I break them, I can heal them. That's why.
Ferris, that is quite enough already.
Subaru's words did not come out towards a Ferris feverish in frustration. And then, the one who had called him from behind to stop was the wizened swordsman, unable to be a witness to the situation. Calling out to the knight who served the same master as him, with a voice devoid of all emotions, Wilhelm spoke.
I fully understand how you must feel, but this behavior is nothing more than an insult to Crush-sama, more so than to anyone else. First calm yourself, then do what you must after you have calmed yourself.
You're saying you understand how I feel like as consolation.
I understand.
As Ferris started to flare up at him, Wilhelm forcibly stopped him in his tracks with a low tone of voice. And then, Wilhelm looked at the jacket he was hugging against his chest, the ashes wrapped within it. Ferris immediately bit his lips, his face immediately guessing who it was that slept there.
It's not fair. 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 Will G?
I know it is poor of me to impose on your generosity, forcing that on you, who opposes the pain of others more than anyone else. You should blame this old man.
Ferris held back his tears and hung his head down. Wilhelm embraced his head and nodded at Subaru. It looked like that meant that he would take over. Ferris too would have to take Crush's place in future discussions once again after calming down. It would be necessary to discuss the handling of Sirius then, but for now, what they should do was to exchange words so that they got to know each other's circumstances. Wilhelm's serene eyes communicated that to Subaru. Taking advantage of that pity, Subaru bowed his head and left the place.
Wilhelm-san must want to cry too.
Why did everything go wrong? Was there no way to achieve joy for everyone, acquaintances and strangers alike? How much did Subaru have to fight, strive and struggle in some way to choose the best option, to arrive at that outcome? It was something that he did not know. He had recently confirmed the safety of Reinhard and Felt, and also Ferris and Crush. The ones that remained missing were Julius and Ricardo, who had gone to recover the Gluttony's control tower. In addition to those, Priscilla's servant, Schult, and although an unpleasant person, Heinkill too. Speaking of which, Julius's young brother, Joshua, ever since the turmoil began, he had always been... Just as that thought flashed through his mind, Subaru saw the shadow of someone watching into the shelter from the outside. He wore well-tailored white garb and had a slender knight's sword holstered at his waist. A handsome and tall profile, along with lustrous purple hair that was almost flashy. There was no way to mistake him. It was Julius. Right now, the guy he wanted to check the safety of was here.
Hey, Julie!
He quickly lifted his hand and raised his voice to try and greet Julius, who let half of his body peek through. But when Julius noticed that Subaru's eyes were looking at him, he quickly turned around and left at hastened pace.
Huh?
Faced with Julius's unexpected behavior, Subaru let out a stunned voice. That reaction was completely unexpected. His opinion has been divided regarding whether Julius would have obediently replied to his voice, but even so, he would have never imagined this reaction. Not an obedient answer, nor sarcasm. He had completely ignored him.
Is that bastard kidding me?
Having spouted out all the irritation boiling within so far, Subaru chased after him. It was not that he was worried, but he was looking for him to confirm his safety, so that attitude was out of order. What was he up to? He had to catch him and find out. It was necessary to mention that this was not the time to joke around.
Hey, Subaru, what's going on?
That pretentious bastard Julius was there and ignored me just now. I'm gonna go get him.
Leaving behind Emilia's voice of surprise, Subaru ran and chased after Julius. After he flew out of the shelter's entrance, he caught a glance of his back, about to disappear across the street. Those were clearly movements to avoid the gaze of the public. However, if he were not running, it would be easy to catch up with him.
If you're okay, just hurry up and say you're okay.
Cursing, Subaru ran to the corner of the street. With one walking swiftly and the other running, the distance inevitably shortened. As soon as he turned around, now able to see his back, Subaru raised his voice.
Hey, you bastard! You! Why the hell are you running around when everyone's so busy? If you don't show your face, I'll be worried. No, people in general will.
Upon hearing Subaru's violent voice, Julius stopped. Julius turned his face only and calmly gazed at Subaru with his yellow eyes. Subaru frowned at the silent glance, but Julius did not change his posture.
My apologies. I was looking for someone, but it looks like that person was not inside. I would like to make my way to another shelter. Please excuse me.
Wait! What are you saying? What you're looking for surely has to be Anastasia-san, right? If so, she was in that shelter. You just didn't realize it because you were impatient. It's not like you.
Calling out to his back, he stopped the other from leaving, who had left behind merely words of courtesy. Then, Julius showed a dramatic reaction to Subaru's words. He made his shoulders spin and turn around with a surprised face.
What's up?
Subaru reflexively reacted with a shrill voice. The reason was obvious. Julius's expression, as he turned, was tinged by an astonishment he had never seen before. No, astonishment was not the sole reason in his expression. What was there was a gleam, as if he had been clinging on to something. Faced with an emotion that did not suit Julius at all, Subaru was at a loss for words. Gazing at Subaru in that manner, Julius gulped, and, with an expression of anguish,
Subaru, you are referring to me?
What kind of question is that? You don't have a personality unassertive enough to be forgotten in just a few hours. Finest of knights, Julius Jaculius' son. What nonsense are you?
Shrugging his shoulders, Subaru responded as if making fun of Julius, and in the midst of that exchange, he stopped talking when he realized his own stupidity. Julius's question right now meant that something had gone wrong. That wrongness should have been grasped by Subaru, if only his imagination had taken him 1 inch closer to the worst possible scenario.
Subaru! Don't run off on your own!
Both Emilia and Beatrice had come chasing after them and joined the scene of the two in front of one another in the street. Upon witnessing the two leering at each other in silence, their large eyes flickered.
Well, you're in the middle of something, right?
As she noticed the strange atmosphere and tension, Emilia anxiously tilted her head. Subaru had had a bad presentiment at her reaction, especially from her gaze, directed at Julius. Thus, Subaru pointed to Julius.
Yes, that's right, but it's not that. Emilia-tan, Bearco, you two, well...
Huh?
Emilia and Beatrice raised question marks at Subaru's awkward words. He had to do something, perhaps a definitive question. Subaru swallowed his saliva and took a glance at Julius. Before Subaru's gaze, Julius prepared himself and lifted his terribly hollow face.
I found Julius, so I can take him to the conference, right?
Julius.
Upon asking, Beatrice gazed at Julius. Then, Emilia spoke doubtfully in a low voice.
Julius-san? Is he an acquaintance of Subaru?
And, as if to repeat the nightmare of before, she spoke.